What's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We're live, and welcome back to the Rethink Tank Live, the show where we ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask, connect the dots nobody wants to connect, and occasionally wander into conversations that would get us thrown out of the respectable dinner party. Tonight, we're taking on a topic that would have sounded ridiculous just a few decades ago. Have the Trumps become America's closest thing to a royal family? From Donald Trump to his children, grandchildren, business empire, political dynasty, loyalists, rivals, and an entire media ecosystem built around every move they make. The Trump name has evolved into something far bigger than a politician. Love them or hate them, few families in American history have commanded this level of attention, influence, and cultural fascination. The founding fathers rejected kings and aristocrats. Yet somehow, 250 years later, America may have built its own version anyway. So tonight, we're asking, are the Trumps simply a powerful political family, or have they become the American monarchy we always claimed we didn't want? With that, let's get into today's episode. So, today, we're talking the Trumps, America's royal family. Let's follow this thought experiment for a moment. When people talk about political dynasties in America, they usually think of the Kennedys, the Bushes, the Clintons, or now the Trumps. But there are those who argue the family tree goes much deeper than that. That behind the politicians, behind the parties, and behind the elections, there exists an interconnected network. This network goes much deeper than we could imagine. The politicians, behind the parties, and behind the elections, there exists this interconnected network of elite families who influence. This influence spans centuries. One of the facts that often fuels these discussions is genealogists have traced many modern political figures back to common European royal ancestors. Every president up until this point has been related. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, for example, have been reported to share ancestry of John of Gaunt, a powerful 14th century English nobleman. To some people, that's merely a reflection of how genealogy works when you go back far enough. To others, it's evidence that the ruling class has always been smaller than the public realizes. And that's where the conversation gets interesting. Because whether you believe in a coordinated elite network or not, there is no denying that political power and wealth tend to travel together. Families that gain influence often gain access. Access creates opportunity. Opportunity creates more wealth. And wealth, in turn, can create even more influence. Critics look at modern politics and ask a simple question. If public office is supposed to be about public service, why do so many of the people closest to power seem to emerge wealthier, more connected, and more influential than when they entered? Now, supporters would argue that successful families naturally leverage their name recognition, business opportunities, and public profile. But skeptics see something different. They see a system where political influence functions almost like inherited nobility. Not through crowns and castles, but through media access, business. These relationships of donor networks and institutional power run so deep. And nowhere is that debate more visible than today with the Trump family. What began as a political movement has increasingly become a family brand, with children, in-laws, and now even grandchildren growing up adjacent to one of the most powerful positions on earth. The question isn't whether powerful families exist. They always have. The question is whether America has quietly developed an aristocracy of its own, one that changes names every few generations, but never truly leave the stage. So with that consideration, I'm just going to let the evidence speak for itself. So like I had suggested, every president up until this point has been related.
Presidents that have, well, reigned in the United States have all been related. As it turns out, both Trump and Hillary Clinton are related to John of Gaunt, a 14th century royal. Gaunt was the first Duke of Lancaster, who was the son of King Edward III. According to MyHeritage, Trump is related through his mother, Mary Ann McLeod, back to his 17th grandfather, John Beaufort, while Clinton is related through her father and the Rodham family back to the 17th great-grandmother, Joan Beaufort. The two candidates are 19th cousins, and so they both have the right bloodlines to continue this lineage. Fascinating that the Bible doesn't speak about the presidents of the world, it speaks about the kings of the world.
Sure.
And it really, over the course of history, hasn't mattered which of the candidates has won, because the candidates have always both been in the same bloodline. Did you know all 44 US presidents have carried European royal bloodlines into office? 34 have been genetic descendants of just one person, Charlemagne, the brutal 8th century king of the Franks. That's a fascinating story, because Charlemagne is, of course, the one who was crowned emperor of the Roman Empire.
I bet you didn't believe it, but it's funny. I had talked about it on the show in the past. There was a really big news clip that went viral once again, but it came from the late 90s of a young girl who did a school project that proved every president all the way through Obama was related. And not only is that video kind of like in the outskirts of the internet, but I like hunted that girl down and talk about it. I wanted to try to interview her, talk about how she came up with this research, what prompted the topic, how did she go down this train of information. And it was funny. She couldn't have been more petrified to like talk about it. It was just this weird dynamic that I've always just kind of taken note of. I tried getting an interview with her, and it was just one of those, like, I can't talk about it. You know, it's a scary topic. And it's like, what? But it's becoming more and more prevalent, as you see here, where you're seeing it in universities and more academic dialogues. And boy, is that not a curtain they want us looking behind. But the big grand family tree, the one of the Rothschilds, the ones that we're not allowed to talk about, we didn't think it would go that big. The focus of today's dialogue is really the Trumps and their kind of taking of royalty in America. We were a country built on no kings. Boy, do the Democrats love of chanting that, except when a king comes into Congress. You know, when the King of England comes in, they love cheering for him. But I will say, is it possible that we have kings of our own? They just hide that power in banks rather than behind knights. So that was kind of one of our first considerations, the bigger, grander tree, but a topic that is coming out of this week that has been catching headlines and kind of the launching pad as I develop maybe an argument or position of this Trump royalty, this family dynasty. Let's start with Trump's pride and joy, his family gem. We'll go to Ivanka. Ivanka and Jared took a trip, and we'll see if you could catch who they took the trip with. That's interesting, and that'll be a through line in today's show. But they took a trip, stumbled upon this remote island in Albania, and they were like, "Mine. This is mine. I want this." It's I guess that's that easy when you have royal power.
An incredible project with my husband in the Mediterranean. It's massive in scale.
I think that's an understatement. Can you explain?
Yes, it is.
There's no power on this island. You're building everything from scratch. Correct.
Well, it's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. Effectively.
First off, just notice one thing: the dichotomy of this clip. Above are the protests in Albania saying Albania is not for sale. Below, Ivanka going, I just took this trip with my husband and a family friend. Notice Ivanka is press trained enough to not disclose who that friend is. But like I said, I want to see if you're paying attention, see who they're with. Ivanka knows not to slip up. We're going to continue with the clip here, but I just love pointing out that dichotomy and how smart she is not to point out who maybe allowed her to stumble upon this island she's going to take.
That's how we found it. We swam to the islands. We went on a hike barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated.
Take your guess now.
Okay. Is it with the Clintons? Because we all know the Trump and Clintons used to be best buddies.
Doug, actually swing and a miss.
Ooh,
you're right.
darn.
They are buddies, but I got to tell you, the theme you got to take from my opening monologue, but even more, the topic of today's show, the tree is bigger than just the Clintons, dude. It's scary. Like I said, let me see if you're paying attention. Jared, what's your side of the story?
I was on a vacation after we left government in the summer of 2021. We were on our friend.
Cute. While we were all, I don't know, trapped in our basement. Oh, you were island shopping. Cute, Jared. Continue.
Nat Rothschild's boat. We got picked up in Montenegro,
whoa.
and then we started sailing over to 2021. We were on our friend Nat Rothschild's boat. We got picked up in.
Did you catch it, Doug?
I caught it.
Yep. Ivanka knew not to say it.
Yep. Yeah, he's dumb.
Ivanka knew not to say it. He's like, yeah, when you guys were all trapped in your basement, I was with Nat Rothschild.
On a vacation after we left government in the summer of 2021. We were on our friend Nat Rothschild's boat. We got picked up in Montenegro, and then we started sailing over to Corfu, and we spent a couple days in Albania. One of the nights there, Prime Minister Rama came to the boat. I had not met him when I was in government, but I was very, very impressed with his vision for what he wanted to do with Albania. I really didn't know anything about the country. I didn't understand the history, and the darkness of the history with the communism and the terrible leadership actually led to it being fully undeveloped as a nation. But Eddie came in. He has one of the cool things I was attracted to is the fact that he seemed like a very skilled politician, as a very strong and smart leader, but also the fact that he was an artist. I thought it'd be very cool to see what a country really led and built by an artist could be, somebody with amazing taste and great creativity. And so I was just intrigued by it. And then before we went to Corfu, we stopped in Butrent, which was also a spectacular site, and just really.
Boy, he's spilling all the beans.
Felt to me like it showed the potential of the country so much.
Is this like an interview he's doing or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And he's just I was, while you were all trapped in your basement, just frolicking islands. And I was like, wow, I would love this for my collection.
Amazing
I
beauty.
guess when you have your own private jet, you don't have to worry about all those pesky regulations,
That's
or your
right.
own yacht, you can just sail through the borders, I guess.
Especially sometimes when dad's in charge of the old TSA pat down. I think you're pretty good.
The water, we did a lot of swimming, a lot of hiking. The country just had incredible
Did a little, snorkeling, hiking, feasting.
natural beauty, but it seemed like a place that nobody knew or understood. And so didn't think much about it for about a year.
No one understood it. No one understood it. Cut to the people that live there. I think they understand, Jared.
About a year later, we started looking at opportunities in the Balkans. And the partner who's leading that effort, I said, you know what, let's go down to Albania. I had such a good experience there. Go check it out, see if there's something there. And we were.
It's like, can we circle back to the Louboutin store? They had some heels that I liked. Can we go back to Albania? I think I want to take one of their islands.
Immediately drawn to where they were building an airport in Vlore. And obviously a country is going to build an airport by the coast in the place that they think is the most beautiful. So we went there, we looked for opportunities, and we were able to find some incredible opportunities. So this really came from obviously a passion, and it came from the desire to build something that I think could be truly unique in the world.
He's really got an eye for these things. Might I remind you that it was a year ago when Gaza was still inhabited by Gazans. And he's like, hey, when we get the pesky rats out of the way and this is all rubble, we're going to be building this up to a luxurious shoreline site and vacation spots. So you want to invest now, and trust us, it'll all be rubble. And here we are. So trust me, he's got an eye for this, Doug. Keep trust in him. Trust in Jared.
I guess we got to trust him.
So again, in that clip, Jared Kushner admits his friend Nat Rothschild was the one who helped him find his new off-the-grid private island in the middle of the Mediterranean while he was on his boat on vacation. Kushner says he had a private meeting with Albania's prime minister on the Rothschild's boat. The private island will be exclusively for the rich, the powerful, and the elites. We were on a friend's boat, Nat Rothschild's on vacation. Again, once he said. So with that all being considered, it is funny. He was really able to rub elbows and grease the palms of Prime Minister Eddie Rama. Boy, is he riling up the folks he's representing.
And the land belongs to the investors. The aim is to build the most exclusive and the most environmentally precious
but some people take issue with the exclusive too.
Why?
Because it becomes an elite on land that belongs to the Albanian people.
The land belongs to the investors. They have bought it from the privates.
And that's part of
Number
the
one.
issue.
So yeah, the people are just supposed to roll over and accept when their prime minister is like, yeah, your island that some of you are even on, you don't own it. The investors do. What's up, Doug?
But like, okay, Ohio, we have what was it? Kelly's Island. You know, it's out there. Someone had to own that land and build all that infrastructure at some point for then it to become what it is. I mean, it doesn't just happen with the government. The government doesn't do all that shit themselves. So at some point, someone comes in and does it.
Let's keep the theory rolling. Doug's example. So you've got the state of Ohio off of one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. You have a few islands. So which one did you bring up? Kelly's Island?
Kelly's Island, just an example. I mean, that island would have had no infrastructure before someone did.
So Kelly's Island is some barren Ohio island with some caves and no infrastructure. Then people travel over there. They're building cabins. Then before you know it, they're building electrical grids. They're making little tourist shops and destinations. You could go tour the caves and yada, yada, yada. Bars pop up, docks for people to wait and tailgate and have all the good times, right? Those all start developing. So, but Doug, that's all private infrastructure on a public island. So let's keep with your example. You know, let's agree that the Ohioans of Lake Erie developed Kelly's Island more than the native Albanians developed this land that Ivanka discovered. Cue the land Ivanka, quote unquote, discovered, walked barefoot and said at the top, tippy top, I want to claim this. Oh. StreamYard messed it up again. So this is the land that she walked and discovered. We snorkeled to it and discovered this land. I mean, okay, is that as developed as Kelly's Island? No, but it's not to say no one's there. Clearly there's people. I mean, I'm looking at the buildings. I'm looking at the dock.
Probably bought it from those people, right? So
well, right now, Albania. So again, keeping with the Kelly's Island example, what do you have? It's not as developed. It doesn't have bars and night lights and the music and the nightlife but you have private citizens that have developed either they own that shore or they own the boat shop on the shore, or maybe they sold it to the government, but what developed it was, again, their original initial private endeavors. But Doug, that's like you developing Kelly's Island. Your mom has a shop there. Your friends have a few houses.
I got a better example.
Somebody's got a bar, and then Ohio sells the island.
I got a better example of that.
Yeah.
There was just in the news in Ohio. There was an island in the lake, undeveloped, nothing. It was selling for like $1 million. No infrastructure. You have to take a boat out to it. That is a purely private owned island. But there was structures there that someone owned it and sold it. So was this island that they bought privately owned, or was it owned by the government before they bought it?
Well,
That's
what
really,
it
I
is
guess,
it's
what I don't
government
get.
owned. Clearly, the Albanian prime minister is the one that's saying, so the deed isn't being exchanged from some private investor to Jared Kushner. It's Albania is selling it to Jared Kushner. That's a huge difference.
And seeing people on there does change my view of it, because I was like, oh, barren island. Okay. I mean, rich people are buying islands all the time. I mean, cruise lines are buying islands in the middle of the ocean all the time. So, but no,
and again, Doug, cue the people standing on the island going, hey, we're selling your ground to the good old Jared Kushner. Clearly they're there. They got some opinions. They got some thoughts on the whole matter. For now. That's if Jared has anything to say about it. All right. I want to cut to, here is Almanac Forever. I don't know. ALIMC Forever reporting what's really going on with this Albanian island.
There is not buying that island in Albania to turn it into a luxury resort. The story that they've put out is that this is a luxury resort project backed by the Saudis and facilitated by the Albanian government. So this is the island here. Look what even Google Maps has labelled this as, firstly. But let's zoom out a bit. That island is here, right there. It is at the exact point where the Adriatic Sea becomes the Ionian Sea, approximately 56 miles from Italy. The single most important geographic fact to understand is that whoever controls this island, Strazan, controls the Strait of Otranado. This narrow choke point between Albania and Italy is the only maritime gateway between the Adriatic and the Mediterranean. Historically, every single navy that has ever wanted to dominate this area or control trade through it has had to occupy and fortify Sazan. This means a lot of the work is already done for them. There are 3,600 nuclear survivable bunkers on this island. There's also 10 miles of underground tunnels connecting command posts, ammunition stores.
You know them and their tunnels. Who said that?
Submarine pens and hideouts. There are Soviet submarine pens and deep water anchorages all
noting this land. This sounds like a good thing for us to have a foot in the door. And,
Not us. Not us. They're not on your side, Doug. They're not your team.
Ready there, ready for use. All of this militarizing of the island, preparation for nuclear war, was done during the Hoxha regime. I will do a separate video about the Hoxha regime in Albania. But here's the full chain of control. It passed from the Ottomans to the Italians to the Albanians to the Soviet Navy, back to the Albanians, and now suddenly it's going to a private American cartel. The through line here is that it has been a military garrison for the local navy. The exception at the end is that it's now being sold to Jared Kushner. Why is Europe allowing the Project 2025 guys to buy their own nuclear garrison in the middle of the Adriatic Sea? Well, we're not, because this was Albania yesterday. Shout out to anybody that was there, you absolute legends. It's not technically correct to say that it's Kushner and Ivana that are buying this island either. This is the Delaware Corporate Registry. This is the entity Atlantic Incubation Partners LLC.
Oh, great.
This is who's buying the island. That LLC is linked
Hugh Bernie, the oligarch.
I guess that means the U.S. in times of war could just claim it as needed for military strategics. I mean, if a U.S. company owns it, it's up for grabs in event of war. Just saying.
Boy, I love where you're thinking, Doug. I wish they would do that ever to like a corporation and not just small little private citizens. But I love where your head's at. They can.
Island either. This is the
That's why I'm
Delaware
surprised
Corporate.
at the U.S. Miami, Florida-based LLC. It's like you would have been better off with Albanian-based LLC, I guess.
Right. Fair.
Say that it's Kushner and Ivana that are buying this island either. This is the Delaware Corporate Registry. This is the entity Atlantic Incubation Partners LLC. This is who's buying the island. That LLC is linked to Kushner's company Affinity Partners. And the CEO of Affinity Partners, Asher Abashira, is also listed as the chairman of Sazan Real Estate Development Company LLC. The legal home of Atlantic Incubation Partners is Delaware. It was formed on the 5th of April 2023, EN 9233297007. Kushner is the public face of this, but I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the Affinity Partners team. You'll get it here. Chad Mizell is Senior Legal Counsel for Affinity Partners. He served as Chief of Staff to the United States Justice Department in 2025. That's an immediate conflict of interest, and we're only at the first name. Nick Butterfield was the former Deputy White House Policy Coordinator from August 2019 to January 2021 under Donald Trump. Also, before that, he interned during George W. Bush's administration. When you search for Lauren Key, the first thing that comes up is the letter that the US Finance Committee had to send her in this CFO role a year ago, saying specifically, I write seeking information relating to the recent revelation that 99% of the investment funds that you are managing is coming from the Saudi Arabian government. This is Chairman Wyden's letter to her, where he literally opens it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Please take note. Chairman Wyden, right? That's what you just said, right?
I believe so.
All right. Ron Wyden. Oh, so cool. We are going to be coming back to this key. Sorry, I'm reading this as we go. Dude, Wyden comes up again.
It is concerning that several Middle Eastern governments are using funds managed by Affinity as a means to pay millions of dollars in fees.
Wait, let's go back.
Relating to the
Sorry, family. I just want to hear that name again.
90% of the investment funds that you are managing is coming from the Saudi Arabian government. This is Chairman Wyden's letter to her, where he literally opens it saying, it is deeply concerning that several Middle Eastern governments are using funds managed by Affinity as a means to pay millions of dollars in fees to the president's son. When I search for the name John Rader, the first thing that comes up is his bio at the Hoover Institution that confirms he is also senior counselor at Palantir and was chief of staff to the US Senator Bill Hagerty. He also spent 4 years in the White House. The next slide is what they call their global research and geoeconomics team. The first one, Major General Miguel Correa, is a retired Green Beret 2-star US Army General. He was the Defense Attaché, which is the highest ranking member of the armed forces stationed in an overseas embassy. He was in Dubai. There, he coordinated a secret 2017 US Special Forces rescue of a downed Emirati helicopter in Yemen. He saved a wounded Emirati royal and became the personal hero to the Crown Prince. He is credited with coining the name Abraham Accords. Charming. The next one is Kevin Hassett, Head of Global Research. Another screaming conflict of interest. Hello? Is the US democracy just for decoration? He is currently the director of the White House.
No, it's not just for decoration. It's for sale.
National Economic Council, the most senior economic policy job in the building. He is also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, a teacher at the Columbia Business School, and has research affiliation with NBER. So the man who is currently the architect of US economic policy is also the head of research at a fund that is 99% financed by Middle East countries. That is a live conflict of interest, an unresolved one that demands a disclosure check, but it's not my country, so somebody should put some pressure on. And then this one, Cale Klingenpeel, is the former chief economist at the America First Policy Institute. You know, the Trump-aligned policy shop? Now, they're part...
Which I'm assuming is Ireland, sold themselves out to tech companies. They are literally the shell headquarters of major corporations in Europe because of their laws friendly to companies. So she's one to talk. Just saying.
I love you for that, Doug. Truth bombs hurt. Boom. See, and I can't wait until I have on the soundboard the whatever insurance commercial that is, and Doug. That's exactly when I'd hit the and Doug. We got to get a good clean and Doug, and that's when I would hit it right then, because that was a truth bomb.
Partners. Asad Nayavi is also a partner at Apis Partners, a private equity fund, and Wolfenson Fund Management, another private equity fund that was founded by the previous World Bank president James Wolfenson. He's also ex-Lazard. It's weird how I read those positions as crimes, but he would probably hear them as a flattering compliment. But anyway, the pattern across his CV is the same machine, extracting fees from the poorest people on earth and dressing that up as inclusion. It's similar with the second one. Brett Perlman is also PE investment banking. I'd love these men to know that if I was sitting looking pretty in a bar with my girlfriends and they tried to send us drinks, I would spit in it and walk out. He was Blackstone's first ever undergraduate hire in 1989, rising to senior managing director. He then went on to co-found Elevation Partners, another private equity firm, a Silicon Valley one. Avi Berkowitz, also in the White House under the Trump administration. He worked on Trump's peace plan, the Gaza peace plan, and on the Abraham Accords. He was actually the lead White House negotiator on the Abraham Accords, the deal that normalized Israel's relations with the UAE. And then Tom Storch, according to the Atlantic Council, is a distinguished fellow in the Project for the Middle East Integration. Also, the deputy director of the National Economic Council, the deputy assistant to the president for the International Economic Affairs, the US lead negotiator at the G20 and the G7 coordination during the US host year 2020, senior director for global economics at NSC, and a senior international affairs official at the Department of Energy. This is going to have to be a two-parter.
Well, we're not going to hang around for the two-part. The main thing is seeing how much is at stake and what clearly is being done here. Doug, actually, I'm going to bring us back to this video one last time. We're not going to listen to it.
Is not buying that island in Albania to turn it into a luxury resort.
Doy. Now, the thing I want to show you, one last quick reminder, as she points out, look even on the map. This is designated as pristine coastline and military zone, Suzanne Island. So, Doug, this isn't just some private island owned by some private investor. The government has a very militarized and strategic island that is going to a major Middle East political figure, a royal for one of God's chosen people. Go ahead.
Before she started bringing up all the royal stuff and who's part of that investment group, my original thought was kind of like, oh, this is going to be used as a three-letter agency front because there's the Project Azorin back in the 70s. They used Howard Hughes' company as a front in order to buy a mining ship to use to salvage a sunken Soviet sub. And so I was like, all right, they're buying this. Maybe it's going to be a front. We're going to be an agency. We'll use it. We'll do some secret things. And then she starts going into all the investors. I was like, oh, this ain't for us.
And let me be real, Doug. I don't want to jump the gun. I'm going to unpeel this onion even deeper and get into the meat of a bigger story. But just a piece of that story is this whole one of the complaints that's going to be coming up. The Pentagon is suing because there is legislation that is going to combine our military with the IDF. And so what you need to remember when you look at something like this is this isn't a strategic military move for us as a nation. It's for a different nation. And even the CIA wouldn't be a party to this. They'd be outside it because this is for other military agendas, not the United States'. All right.
Wait. So you're saying the CIA doesn't work for other governments? I mean, you
they
believe they
with,
really just work for us? I believe they work for whatever benefits them.
They are their own entity. It's kind of like their own little government within our government. But I don't want to jump the gun and get to that story too quick. Keeping in line, though, here's Tim Dillon. He's interviewing Drop Site News. Well, you know what? Actually, before we peel the Jared Kushner element much deeper, one of the things I really need to start reporting, all right? So I'm sitting here making a claim that we have, a royal family in this. This is the Trumps, America's true and new royal family. Just since 2024, this administration alone. And honestly, I'm going to present all of this really with the claim that maybe us as Americans, we need to recognize that we should never have a lame duck again. We should never vote in a president in their second term. where they don't have to worry about re-election and they can go rampage, do whatever they want, and renege upon every promise they made to their voter base. I mean, literally every promise they made.
But you realize that just doesn't work because a lame duck is the president nearing the end of their term too. So they could be in their first term, they not get reelected. Now they know they're a lame duck and they're going to do what they want. Like, it doesn't really work because even if we don't elect them to a second term, they know if we elect them to a second term, then they have 3.5 more years, and then they're a lame duck anyways. So like, there really is no good way of keeping a lame duck out.
So you're saying if we just never voted for a second term, they'd catch on and go rampage the first time?
Well, even if they even if they lose the election's in November, that's 3 months of them being able to do what they want. Look at Biden. He signed all those freaking pardons with auto pen.
Great point. I guess we're really learning how much we are at the mercy of the executive branch. But let me just peel apart one of the most corrupt and vile presidential administrations we've ever seen in this country, what they were able to accomplish in just half a term. Reporting from, a couple of weeks away from America's 250th birthday, Donald Trump's net worth has roughly tripled or increased by $3 to $4.5 billion since early mid 2024, reaching estimates to $6 to $7.5 billion by late 2025, early 2026. This is coming from Forbes sources, World Liberty Financial. That he was able to do a lot of this by cryptocurrency ventures. We're looking at Trump coin, meme coin, stable coins, plus Trump Media and Technology Group, Truth Social, parent stock, licensing merchandise, and real estate deals. Much of the value is liquidated paper assets like crypto and stock holdings that fluctuate significantly. Not to mention, we know there's somebody within this network that's real close to all of these polymarket prediction market betting for when Trump says Allah on Easter or whatever. Donald Trump Jr.'s net worth rose 6 times from $50 million in late 2024 to $300 million in late 2025. Gains primarily from cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining company with his brother Eric, that same Wealthy family ventures, some PACs, new company shares, plus licensing, real estate interests. Eric Trump, net worth increasing over 10 times from $400 million pre-2024 election to $400 million. Late 2025 peaked higher around $750 million, according to Forbes. Insane. Major boosts from a significant stake in American Bitcoin, crypto projects, often cited wealthiest among the siblings due to these holdings. But they're not married to God's chosen people royalty like Ivanka. Ivanka Trump, limited direct gains reported, individual net worth, because it's all in her hubby's name, but individual net worth estimated around 50 to 100 million, according to Forbes 2025, with combined assets with Jared in the hundreds of millions up to $1 billion range in some broader estimates. Now, let's get to the king of the family tree and God's chosen people royalty, Jared Kushner. Net worth grew 900 million 2024, over $1 billion by 2025, making him a billionaire. Growth via his affinity partners, as we were kind of getting into in this past, heavy Middle East, Saudi-backed investments, assets reporting to $6+ billion. Plus Kushner Company's real estate stakes. The family real estate empire expanded significantly overall. Note on estimates, net worth figures vary by source and dates. Forbes is primarily the reference. Family-wide gains are estimated in $4 and growing billion range from new ventures with crypto as the biggest driver. Family added billions in paper realized value. Significant. This is what's crazy. So the significant business deals, real estate, and investments since 2024. The Trump family has aggressively expanded in crypto, foreign real estate licensing, tech SPACs, SPACs, and related sectors, often leveraging the Trump brand and political influence. Key themes include Gulf, Middle East partnerships, and deregulation-friendly industries. All right, so crypto ventures. World Liberty Financial, the WLF, launched in 2024 with sons and partners like Witkoff's. The family stakes token sales, stablecoin, major investments included about $500 million from the UAE. Let's get to the Trump Media Technology Group. Stock surges and merger talks. Technologies for nuclear fusion angle contributed billions in valuation paper wealth to Trump. Major real estate development and licensing Trump organizations struck numerous foreign deals, powering 10 plus billion in projects. Examples like Trump branded towers, resorts, golf clubs in Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Tower, I can't say that. Oh, yeah, Riyadh. Duh. I'm like, I've said that. Riyadh, Red Sea, the UAE, Dubai, Qatar, golf, villas. They're estimating about $5.5 billion going to Oman, Vietnam, India, and others. Partners often linked to Gulf governments, sovereign funds, licensing fees, flows, all of this to the Trumps, domestic, international expansions via his sons. Other investment deals, stakes in drone companies, yummy, Kushner affinity, billions in assets from the Middle East funds, family forays into AI data centers, indirectly via policy and investments. These activities have drawn scrutiny over potential conflicts of interest, foreign deals during presidency, crypto deregulation, but the family maintains separation via trusts and denies direct government ties in the deals. Oh, isn't that sweet of them? So that being said, Tim Dillon, remind us, who is Jared Kushner?
Would it be completely crazy to say that Jared Kushner is working in an Epstein-like fashion?
So right here, he is interviewing Dropsite News. He's talking to Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill. Is Jared the new Jeffrey?
To maintain certain relationships and to build other relationships and to increase the likelihood that certain outcomes happen on a global chessboard. Do you see Kushner as a figure like that, or am I overstating it?
You know, I think one of the biggest scandals is what's hidden in plain sight. I think that, a story like the Epstein files and Jeffrey Epstein's relationships with all of these ultra powerful people, and, Ryan has done more reporting than anyone on the Israel connection on this. It captures the imagination, but part of why it's so damning is that it's indicative of something that isn't even a secret conspiracy. That what's hidden in plain sight is that the reason that we're at war against Iran right now is because of the way that the US political system is arranged. It's because of the sameness of policy that exists among the elites of the Democratic Party and the kind of most vicious elements of the Republican Party. This is an enormous indicator of the influence that Israel has over an issue as sensitive of the decision of a state to go to war, where you have, as you mentioned earlier, the Secretary of State mistakenly saying the quiet part out loud that we did in fact go to war for Israel, and then he has to walk it back later, and then Trump has to concoct this ridiculous statement about how the US has been in a state of needing to preempt Iran for 47 years. But what's hidden in plain sight is in a way more damning than the Epstein files. It's that we have a system that produces the kinds of characters that are in power right now.
I don't know, Doug. I think that's pretty nail on the head. We're not just seeing like a certain figure that has a political influence or manipulative power. It's an entire system that has infected what we've had faith in. So I got to ask, Doug, would you agree that this is Jared and this manipulative collusion conspiracy, this manipulative power is the reason we're at war right now?
I mean, war usually spurs investment in military stuff, which circles back to Palantir. Not to mention that we had already given away a lot of our stockpiles, which means now we're heavily having to invest in more production. So those companies are going to make more money.
And they're all invested in them?
Yeah. Not to mention war usually spurs also the most invention. So maybe they're trying to spur something we don't know about yet.
But what? Great point. But Doug, wouldn't you agree then that it's weird when the president says he has
Trump.
right, when he says he has no intention of going into no new wars, and you just give a litany of reasons why financial oligarchs would be, I don't know, compelled to promulgate more wars?
Changed because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee.
I didn't do that.
Why would I build the strongest military in the world? I built our military. I inherited a terrible military. We had no equipment. We had nothing. I built a tremendous military. Biden gave a lot of it away, but it's still a relatively small portion.
Why do we let him get away with this? Why do we let him get away with saying, like, I inherited a trashy military? Dude, you inherited your military.
Isn't this also the same interview he ended up walking out on?
Yeah, dude, he's such a clown. But you know, he's a farmer's guy. You know, keep that in mind. Well, he's got John Deere in the background.
To what I built.
Yeah, but
You
notice
said
how
it
there's, his shoes are squeaky clean. I mean, look at that. Look at that shine on those shoes. You know,
that man, you know, it's one of those things my uncle always taught me. You could just tell the level of someone's, I don't know, physical work experience simply by how they hold a broom. I'd love to watch that guy sweep.
Or Alex, my favorite example is when we were in high school and our coach is having us take a sledgehammer and we're hitting a tractor tire and the one dude can't figure out how to properly swing a sledgehammer. He's like, how do you not know how? He's like, I'll just hire someone to do it. What?
Hey, that must be nice to come from car dealership royalty. See what I mean? You got to have money. Doug, you and I are just regular losers. And what comes with that is knowing how to carry a broom. That being said, let's get back to Trump here with his little squeaky clean shoes, as Doug points out. I can't believe we're letting him get away with saying he inherited a trashy military. We've been the most funded military of the world for 100 years. What the hell does this guy mean?
Over and over again, Mr.
Why would I
President.
build a military? Now, I didn't want to use this. But
I didn't want to use it. Wait, we got to start this.
What changed because you
What
insisted
changed?
no new
Look.
wars.
You said it.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. Why would I have built the strongest military in the world? I built our military. I inherited a terrible military. We had no equipment. We had nothing. I built a tremendous military. Biden gave a lot of it away, but it's still
Gave it away to Ukraine.
a relatively small portion compared to what I built.
But you said it
Wait a minute,
over and
wait a minute.
over again, Mr.
Why would I
President.
build a military? Now, I didn't want to use this, but I'm doing you and everybody else a big favor. In the midst of the greatest stock market in history, in the midst of the most successful country, because as you know, in the last term, we were a dead country, Kristen. I know you're a big liberal, or a big progressive.
No,
But
I'm
we
just
were-
a journalist.
I'm just a journalist. Oh man, I just love the patting of his back, and he can't address that. I only jumped the gun to that clip, Doug, because you were like, well, maybe we did go to war because of all these great reasons. It's like, but then let me remind you that he insisted on his campaign that he would go to no new wars, and then she's like, didn't you say no new wars? He's like, I never said I can. Nobody can guarantee that. Do you know Marian Adelson gave me $300 million? Nobody can guarantee that. She can walk into the White House every day if she wants. I can't promise that. That's our guy. I just want to see where else we're at. But you know who called this shot a long time ago? You know, maybe we should have voted him for president a while back. Maybe I'm going to get in trouble for ever even suggesting this. But let me just say, one man called this a long time back at the beginning of this road with this administration to begin with, or to mention. This is somebody that was personally involved, got to experience it firsthand, and he sounded the alarm, and we thought he was cray-cray.
And then after talking to them, and really sitting with Jared and sitting with Josh
Kushner.
and finding out other
Cushy
pieces
baby.
of information, I was like, wow, these guys might have really been holding Trump back and being very much a handler right then. They love to just look at me or look at Trump like we're so crazy and that they're the businessmen. So when I think about...
Say that again, Doug.
I like the ye plus Tucker, the ye plus Tucker.
You can't, Doug. You can't find yourself on a public broadcast calling him ye.
That's how I'm going to pronounce it, man.
It's yay, and you know that.
It's not even his real name, though, so I'm not going to pronounce it when it's not his real name, damn it. If we're gonna make arguments, people are gonna argue what you're on your license is who you are. That ain't his name on his license. All right? He may identify with the gender on his license, but that ain't no name on his license, which means legally, I don't have to say shit. Lawyer.
Yay, take it away.
Right then, they love to just look at me or look at Trump like we're so crazy and that they're the businessmen. So when I think about all of these things that Jared, you know, somehow doesn't get enough credit for with his work, and what is it, his work in Israel or his work in Palestine, what is this? You know where he made these peace treaties? Where was that? Do you know the facts on this right here? So I'm like...
Well, I think that was between Israel and some of the Arab nations.
I just think it was to...
Mind you, this is back when Tucker was in denial.
Make money. I don't know. Is that too heavy-handed to put in this platform?
No, that's your opinion. We're not in the censorship business.
Okay, thank you. And I just think that that's what they're about, is making money. I don't think that they have the ability to make anything on their own. I think they were born into money. And for me, as a maverick and a talent and a person that's been, you know, beat, kicked, lost everything, sad to have lost my mind, went from pull myself up by my...
Hey, just talk yourself more into the hype mode, Kanye. I mean, but it is interesting. He points it out. They're not in it for you. They're in it for the money. Seems like this guy might be his handler.
The last musician that did that was, you know, Michael Jackson, and we all know what happened to him.
Sue me, screw me, never gonna do me. He says them, and then he gets in trouble. But it is funny. He literally says that, you know, Trump can't praise him enough. He can't get enough of the credit. This guy is like clearly the one pulling the strings. Here's clip. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Jared.
I also want to thank a man who has been unbelievable in terms of Israel. Jared Kushner is making peace in the Middle East. He established the Abraham Accord. Jared Kushner, what he did, and he wants no praise. He couldn't care less. He truly couldn't care. Thank you, Jared. Jared's a very smart guy. Let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. He's the father of the Abraham Accord.
Now, then people would say, "Come on, that's his son-in-law. Every man loves praising his son-in-law. That's a normal thing." But you know, maybe
I really don't think most fathers praise their son-in-law,
especially to that degree. Especially son-in-laws that I don't know are making military contracts on the behalf of 350 million people in a country. That being said, are you now seeing the man behind the curtain?
Then I realized what it is. There's a man in back of this place.
It's things that like audios like this that are so culturally significant have to like be suppressed by YouTube.
I can see him through the wall. I never see that face.
The true power. That's all I'm saying. Know the true power. Dougie Fresh. We brought up Senator Ron Wyden. That's crazy that came up earlier when we were getting the report from Almick for forever. She was telling us about all the corporate
who was criticizing our government when their government also sold out.
Well, it's almost like they're all selling out to the corporate oligarch in control. That being said, one of the considerations she raises is, as I suggested, these giant corporate powers that are kind of taking their stranglehold, Ron Wyden kind of playing his role in its facilitation there. That being said, how weird is this exchange coming out of this past week? Donald Trump's U.S. treasurer is sitting there, and he initially gets grilled by Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat, because it's so ironic, dude. It's so wild that these Democrats are taking this self-righteous position. Now that here's the deal. There's a pyramid of evil behind this Epstein thing. Trump is clearly closer to the top than most. So that being said, they're smelling blood in the water. The Democrats are sitting here for the first time in a decade of Epstein dialogue. They're going, oh, Epstein, talk about Epstein. Isn't it crazy that Republicans and Trump are hiding Epstein? You've had no interest, like I said, until you smell blood in the water. That being said, it's also hilarious how much they forget they and their whole party are equally convicted in this whole thing. And watching this, how the turntables have turned is what makes, our modern politics better than daytime TV.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Let's be clear here. Nobody is interested in the ramblings of a capo in the most corrupt regime in American history. We want to get some facts about this deal. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I will ask my questions first today.
And we would like to hear what Adam Wyden and Jeffrey Epstein talked about. Your son's largest investment position was Rick's Cabaret. So did your son and Jeffrey Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility?
Should I just proceed? I'm going to proceed with my question.
Oh, no response. They confer. They're like, no, not that one. Dude, that is lovely. Like I said, modern politics is becoming better than daytime TV, but you're seeing the grander connection. Doesn't matter, team red, team blue, it all goes to the same network. And even above the Trump family tree is a bigger problem, which I need to point out here, being the Rothschild connection. So here is the Flagrant podcast where they're interviewing political commentator Sager, and they are discussing what might be one of the more explosive elements that came out of the Epstein files.
All of the Epstein files, what is the craziest email that you feel like everybody missed?
The most interesting email is this connection of the House of Rothschild to Jeffrey Epstein. Edmond de Rothschild, at the time, was facing a problem with the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice was alleging that Edmond de Rothschild, the bank in Switzerland, was helping wealthy Americans dodge taxes. So what they decide is that they'll pay a fine. Now, to negotiate that settlement, they hire two individuals, Kathy Rumler and Jeffrey Epstein. He says, I think you will find 45.5 penalty, that's 45.5 million, legal 10 million for legal fees to Kathy, me 25, all less than 80, pretty good. They paid 45.5 million to the Department of Justice. Epstein was paid 25 million to broker that deal. The reason why this puts it all together for me is you have the Rothschilds negotiating with the American Justice Department. Who do you hire? There are 10 law firms which you hire. You don't hire Jeffrey Epstein unless you're hiring him for a reason.
That's a big point. I'm sorry. You got to hang on that one for a second. One other piece that I want to raise out of the Epstein files, wherever I can, I'd like to. One of the EFTAs that came out of this file drop. One detail worth remembering in the Epstein files, Jeffrey Epstein bragged that he represented the Rothschilds, and he said this to Peter Thiel. So now Jared Kushner says Nathaniel Rothschild found him this private island. All roads lead to the Rothschilds. So here's Peter Thiel, and we've heard about Palantir's involvement in what? An hour of today's episode. It's been embedded through this whole network. That's going to be the Orwellian AI technocrat system they implement in this grander oligarch that they plan on, the new world order that they plan on enthralling on us. So it's just worth remembering. This is what Jeffrey Epstein likes to brag about to Peter Thiel. I represent the Rothschilds. But again, a lot of notes worth remembering, and there's just too much being thrown at you. So you just try to catch as much as you can. At this point, we're not closing the book on my argument, my position here that the Trumps are modern American royalty. No, what we're going to do is kind of take a little break to a new chapter in this story. Something that we've had to acknowledge the last couple of weeks here is the loss of Thomas Massie, where he lost in a $32 million. It shows that a foreign government can invest $32 million to hijack our democracy. So we're going to kind of do a little Thomas Massie chapter here, because it's worth remembering how this guy voted 90% along party lines, aka did the bidding of Trump about 93% of the time. I think he told us in our earlier shows. So that 7% are the few times where Trump deviates from what he said he would do for his populace. So that's going to kind of be the theme, reminding you where Trump has deviated from his promises and is lying right to your face. But with all things considered, let's get right into Thomas Massie lost.
Did lose your bid for re-election this past Tuesday after serving 7 terms in Congress. Why do you think you lost this race, Congressman?
Well, listen, since the day I got to Washington, D.C., I've been doing this job like I thought people wanted you to do it. I read the bills. I didn't give my voting card to the speaker. I've never given it to a president. I don't even give my voting card to the Freedom Caucus. I vote for people over party. And, you know, that means 10% of the time I vote against the party. I've exposed a lot of things in Washington, D.C., the cronyism. I would say, you know, and also bankrupting our country, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. I point out how they're bankrupting our country and how these are all fake fights. They love to divide us. I think the biggest crime I committed against the swamp, Kristen, was showing the American people that somebody on the right could join somebody on the left and get something done, which is releasing the Epstein files that everybody knew needed to be done. That's probably the only bill that's passed Washington, D.C. in the last 10 years that lobbyists haven't written. It was written by me and Ro Khanna, and we used the pressure of the American people to cross the aisle and get things done. That's when they decided I had to be taken out, that I was becoming effective, so they wanted to eliminate me. And by the way, they couldn't buy my vote in 14 years, so they bought this seat. This was the most expensive race in congressional primary history. And at the end of this race, we were spending more per day, my side and the opposing side. We were spending more per day than most entire congressional races are spent for the entire cycle.
And you know what? This moment might be rattling, disheartening, but there is a silver lining to every evil we have to live through. And the silver lining here is that now, not only was Thomas Massie dangerous before, but until November, you now have an unchained pit bull who's ready to burn it all down. And that's right. And now this will be the most dangerous Thomas Massie you ever see, which is probably the best version of Thomas Massie we could ask for. That being said, he's planning on disclosing everything.
Expect you to name more names in the coming weeks and months?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, baby.
Todd Blanche is violating the law. They're still...
The Epstein files. They're gonna name Epstein file names, baby.
Which is violating the law. They're still... Yes. Todd Blanche is violating the law. There's still millions of files they haven't released. We know from talking to the victims' lawyers that their own 302 forms haven't been released. We know that files have been over-redacted. I have released at least 3 names of billionaires who are implicated in this. I don't think it's possible to get to convictions with Todd Blanche at the top and with the FBI director, Kash Patel, at the top, because they've effectively both perjured themselves by saying that there's nobody else in the files. Even Melania doesn't believe that. The First Lady knows that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. And here's the great thing, Kristen. Whether I'm in Congress or not, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a law, and it goes on for years. So if we can't get this Attorney General and this FBI director to do the right thing, the next ones who take those seats are obligated by law to release the files that these individuals are not releasing now.
I love the spirit of his message, but the other thing you want to remind him of is obligated by law or not. Clearly, if it's not getting enforced, that they might say the line exists, but if nobody holds it, it means nothing. So yeah, they're breaking a law, but if they're breaking a law, no one's enforcing. Are they really breaking a law? The answer, Thomas Massey, in reality, unfortunately, is no. So we got to make something happen here, big dog. But as far as Thomas Massey nuclear bombs go, because dude, I'm even worried about showing this on our channel. But come on. It's been 8 years now. We're coming up on a decade, Doug. A decade of saying what needs to be said, being truthful, honest, and genuine, no matter the consequence, pain, or suffering that they bring about us for being truthful to our soul. Wear integrity on our sleeve. So Thomas Massey blows things up on the congressional floor yesterday. And he wants to take his time that he was allotted to remind all of the Americans. You know, it's beautiful to start remembering these things. You know, Trump likes to make a mockery of Pearl Harbor. And it's good to remember that you know, we want to be obsessed with our enemies, those that we need to know your enemies, that whole deal. Well, maybe there's a story most Americans don't know, a lot shy away from, or forced to ignore. However, Thomas Massey made it a focal point yesterday. Let's discuss, say it quietly, Doug, so YouTube doesn't hear you. Let's talk about the USS Liberty.
Next day, on June 8th, they started the day. The visibility was unlimited. The American flag was flying proudly on the USS Liberty. More planes came from Israel to surveil the boat, the ship. And they thought they were in good shape, but what happened next surprised them all. French Mirage jets showed up and for 25 minutes strafed and attacked the USS Liberty. They shot rockets. They shot 30-millimeter cannons into the hull and into the ship. They even dropped napalm on the bridge of the ship. This was an effort to kill everybody on board. There was no intention of taking prisoners. After the 25 grueling minutes of attack on this virtually unarmed ship, and they thought things were over and they could recover, the torpedo boats showed up, 3 torpedo boats. They launched 4 torpedoes. One of them hit the hull of the USS Liberty and killed 25 people instantly. It blew a 40-foot by 40-foot hole in the side of this ship. They were intent on sinking it. But they were also intent on not having a single survivor. According to eyewitness accounts, the Israelis machine-gunned the lifeboats that they put down.
See, this is the crappy military Trump had to inherit he's talking about. Just getting beaten up.
They machine-gunned the firefighters who were on the deck. They were bringing the wounded and the dead to the mess hall to triage them. They had one doctor who was trying to help them all, put a few stitches in. It was harrowing, and it's amazing. If not for that crew, that boat would have sunk that day. But it still wasn't over. Helicopters showed up, combat helicopters. And the USS Liberty, even though their signals were being jammed by the Israelis, got a signal out. And there were ships that tried to respond. The USS Saratoga, the USS America sent planes. Both of them sent planes to help the USS Liberty. And something happened that's never happened before. A ship under attack, the planes were recalled. This has never happened before. And they sat there for 17 hours. 34 dead, 174 wounded. out of 294 crew members. That's over 70% casualty rate, unheard of. The Israelis were intent on leaving no survivor. And what about our own military? Why did they not send anybody for 17 hours to help these men? So what really happened? You know, the official reports say that it was a case of mistaken identity. But if you listen to Dean Rusk, former Secretary of State, Richard Helms, CIA Director, Bobby Ray Inman, head of the NSA, Captain Ward Boston, who was the chief counsel of the Court of Inquiry. If you listen to Admiral Moore, who served in Pearl Harbor, Midway, commanded both the Atlantic and Pacific Fleet, and was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, none of these distinguished men think this was an accident. They think it was intentional murder by the country of Israel, either as a false flag operation or because they simply didn't want anybody observing what they were doing that day. Well, I've got a call to action for everybody here. Honor these individuals. Quit ignoring that they exist. Go to their website, ussliberty.org. Support them. And while they're still alive, they need closure. Let's give them closure. Let's have an investigation. Let's pass a resolution honoring them. It's long overdue. And then they can have their justice. With that, I yield back. And I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a declaration of Ward Boston declaring that the only official court of inquiry was invalid.
I mean, if this is what, just a couple weeks after losing his future career in Congress, boy, the next few months are about to get reckless, and I'm stoked. That being said, I was a little late to the comments. I want to shout out Just Another Day TV. We got Ricky and Will. We wish you guys were here. We appreciate you guys joining us remotely, in the comments. And guys, the best way to correspond and be a part of the show is head on over to the comments. The whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. Involved. That's how long we've been doing this. We want to get you involved. So please head on to the comments and be a part of the dialogue. And if you're enjoying today's episode, be sure to share and like. That being said, let's continue. TMZ DC, coming from the District of Columbia. We had an interview with Thomas Massie. People are speculating some peculiarities surrounding his loss, we'll say. And it is interesting. The internet always kind of finds some unique conspiracies. I want to draw attention to one of these filings that have come out of it. Ed Galrain drew 57,053 votes in the 2026 GOP primary. That is a 351% surge in anti-Massie voting. That is the biggest surge in U.S. election history. Massie's vote rose 18% from 39,929 to 47,018. A total GOP primary turnout nearly doubled in an off-year race. Money, Trump, and pro-Israel can't explain it alone, or maybe it can, but a 351% challenger surge is not normal. It deserves precinct-level scrutiny. Maybe we need an audit or a recount. That being said, Thomas Massie tends to be the more level-headed among us.
Sounds like we're talking about election denial.
I know. And that's why you got to go to somebody like Thomas Massie. He tends to be more level-headed, where I have a couple screws loose and I try to avoid it, but short circuit to maybe some of the more schizophrenic conspiratorial stories. He keeps us grounded and he tells us really how he thinks he lost. And it's a little bit more level-headed.
Trump just sort of truthed out about the California or the LA mayor's race, saying basically that he thinks might have been rigged against Spencer Pratt because he had the lead and now he's not even in the runoff. Election integrity seems to be like in the toilet. It seems like every election, if it's up in the air, if there's some conjecture, there's a certain percentage of the population who thinks it's rigged. Is there any way back from that?
Well, first of all, before I comment on races I wasn't involved in, let me comment on my own race.
Okay.
I don't believe there was tampering of the machines. I don't think there was miscounting. I don't think there was fraud in my own race. To the extent there was fraud, there was a $30 million foreign lobby making artificial intelligence generated ads that had nothing to do with reality. That was the kind of fraud that happened there. And I do believe that elections are stolen here in Congress, but the way they get stolen is members of Congress get elected to represent 750,000 people, and they get a voting card. There's my voting card. It belongs to 750,000 people in Kentucky, and they come
Like
up
that
here
logic.
and they give it to the minority leader or the Speaker of the House. That's where the elections get stolen.
Huh.
Is when the lobbyists take this card, the whip team takes this card, your own leadership takes this card from you, and you're supposed to hold it for 750,000 people. That's where I've observed that in a republic, the elections have been stolen.
Is there a way to prevent that?
Ask me in a few months after. I don't know how you prevent what happened to me. You just need more people with a spine, frankly. They were able to concentrate their effort on me because nobody else would stand up. If you had a dozen of me, they would have had to spread $30 million 12 ways, and we wouldn't have $3 million apiece to beat us, and I could have won handily.
Right.
So,
Wow.
Gotcha. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you, mate. Thank you.
It's almost like the system doesn't work when just one person has integrity. Got to have at least a couple. A dozen's, I think, asking a little too much. That being said, there's no better person to kind of evaluate the current landscape again, like we had earlier in today's episode, than Tim Dillon. You know, you could buy an election anymore. You could buy reality.
I don't know how you run a country where people can just dump $32 million into a race. I think what it's showing you is that if you spend enough money, you can just create any reality you want. No one knows who the hell the other guy is. He was just handpicked, came out of nowhere, was a veteran, was like, we got to get kids back into the military. We got to get them to Iran now. Now, you would think that's probably not a super popular idea. Let's bring back the draft. Let's get your son out of the house and into Iran. You would think that as ideas go, that's probably a relatively hard sell. However, if you spend enough money in American politics, you can create any reality you want. This guy who's like, release the Epstein files, hold people accountable, prosecute pedophiles, get out of foreign wars, that guy loses to a guy who's like, let's cover up the Epstein files, let's not prosecute pedophiles, let's go to war with your kids. You would think just platform to platform. That's a tough sell. Like, that's a hard sell.
And yes, to a brainwashed boomer on Fox News, apparently it works. Apparently it's quite an easy sell. I don't know. But Doug, you didn't want us to go here, but naturally I want to steer us here. Maybe Thomas Massey gives us a little bit of grounding. He keeps us grounded and logical. But, you know, Fed psyop Nick Shirley loves shaking a bee's nest, and he was just released. There's clips coming out today of Nick Shirley. You know, there's this patent election coming out of California, all the voter fraud that's been thrusted and hypothesized and theorized around California. Well, Nick Shirley, of course, starts doing his investigative journalism. And here's just one of the fun, unique interactions that came from one of his recent reports, where here's a 170-some-year-old lady voting 50-some times in American elections.
How old is this person who's eligible to vote here inside the United States, inside the state of California?
126 based on the Secretary of State.
And this is Doris.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna see if Doris is home. Are you Doris?
She's right here. Yes.
Hello, Doris.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We're just going through the voting rolls here, and we're just confirming anybody who's above the age of 100 years old. And right here it says you're 126 years old.
No, you got the wrong house. That's a lie.
Are you Doris Wood?
Yeah, but you got the wrong house. I'm Doris, but you got the wrong place. That's the wrong information. All that stuff. No, that's wrong.
Oh, here, I can show you if you like.
No, It's just that it's wrong.
How come you think here in California they're just messing up on all these voting rolls here?
I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it says you voted in 51 elections, Doris.
No, not me.
Really?
I'm not no 100-some years old.
I know.
I said I wasn't.
I just want to make sure you're not 126 years old.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it really does say you're 126 years old here.
No.
Says,
Who did this be 126? That don't even make sense.
I know, that's what the Secretary of State says.
Well, the Secretary of State is wrong.
Okay, well.
Put it like this, I was born in 1940, so you figure that out.
All right, Doris. You have a good evening.
Hey, Doug, is this restoring faith in the system?
I never had faith in California to begin with.
All right, don't thrust it on California. It's not just California. This is everywhere.
I know, but that specific was California. Am I surprised? No.
Well, Doug, I gotta point out. Let's just remind you. This also came out just recently. One of the cool photos being shared by Nick Shirley, just to remind you he's a psyop. Here's him with State Representative Muttley. Right? We call him Muttley because, remind you, every time Trump brings up child trafficking or 9/11, where he profited greatly from, just a accidental fluke, Muttley. I just love calling this dude Muttley. He's the most evil human in our government. And don't worry, we're going to be getting back to Muttley. Muttley ain't done in today's episode. Just the first glimpse of Satan in today's episode, but we're coming back. Keeping it going. You thought this detour of Thomas Massie was going to totally derail today's theme of the Trump royal family of America. No. We're getting back to the Trumpski sham, pyramid scheme, lie, whatever you want to call this. But here's Donald Trump. Doug, click to yourself real quick. Lean back just a little bit. Doug's got this sexy Jose shirt on. He came in fully repping Cleveland. Doug, I think you're going to get excited about this next one. The perfect bridge from Thomas Massie back to Donald Trump. Again, I remind you, the interview. I thought you promised no new wars. How can I do that? Nobody can do that. That's crazy stuff. This is a guy that sold an entire voter base, a lie he had no intention of even entertaining, let alone delivering on. So the nexus back to Trump is going to be, Doug, you ready?
I'm ready.
Joe Thomas, Browns legend, and an NFL Hall of Famer.
A hero to us linemen.
That's right. Us linemen, the big boys. We love us some Joe Thomas. So Donald Trump found himself, get this, sitting next to Joe Thomas. Now, as much as I have become a fan of Joe Thomas in that he's a great representative of the city, he cares about people. He cares about making a positive impact. And I think the cause that he's advocating for is really what he cares about. But he totally shills out to Trump. I want to remind you, we've covered multiple times on this show the efforts Thomas Massie is taking to protect American farmers and expand our farming industry rather than Trump's initiative of selling it to Boss Baby's brother, the president of Argentina. So instead of Argentinian beef, Thomas Massie is trying to preserve American farms and push us for positive agricultural thriving markets here in America rather than exporting it to foreign nations. That being said, it's funny. he'll still put on a show for you idiots and sit next to your favorite Joe Thomas and lie to you like he gives a shit about this cause as one of the things that Thomas Massie is taking on as an initiative that is going unsupported by Republicans is the protection of farmers. So please enjoy this lie as Joe Thomas sits front row.
So Joe, great football player. I would tell you one of the truly greats, Hall of Famer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President. Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame Farms, Muscoda, Wisconsin. You should come visit. It's beautiful. I got to pump Secretary Rollins' tires a little bit for the Small Processors Action Plan because as a farm-to-table beef producer like myself, we see one of the biggest bottlenecks in our country is the lack of small packing and processing plants.
Listen to him, Mr. President.
For people like me that are trying to raise farm-to-table beef, Wagyu and Angus, and be able to feed our community, and she's doing...
But look at his face. He's sitting there like, I don't want your Wagyu from Wisconsin. It's supposed to come from, I wasn't going to bring it into today's episode, but I'm going to. It's supposed to come from Boss Baby's brother.
No. We all
Respect the Boss Baby.
No.
It's coming from Boss Baby's brother in Argentina.
No, Wagyu is supposed to come from Japan, people. All right, that's the one thing.
Hold
Japan
on,
does
Doug.
right.
Doug, I got a question for you. I like the stance you're taking, but I want Doug to proclaim right here, live, in front of all of the human beings, that he's above Joe Thomas Wagyu.
My favorite Wagyu of all time.
No.
Japan.
Don't Marco Rubio this dialogue. I want you to address the topic.
Have I ever tried Joe Thomas's Wagyu? No, so I will not comment.
But you won't say you're above it, and that's my bigger point.
Well, no, if it's as good
No,
as
in
Japan,
fact, you're excited to try it. You'll give it a
will
whirl.
try it because my favorite steak of all time was a Wagyu steak from Japan.
So I was right.
If he can match that, dude's my new American hero. Like, he was already my hero growing up. He's my new food hero then.
Dude, hold on, Doug. You know what Wagyu is. Wagyu is just crippling a baby calf in its cage. You just don't let it walk, so it gets all this.
Man,
so you don't
right.
think Joe Thomas can cripple a calf and not let it walk here in Wisconsin better than a Japanese?
The Japanese do it different, man. They take care of that cow.
Joe Thomas takes care of it with love, Doug.
So maybe he's Japanese.
I want you to tell him that.
I mean, Miles Garrett
he is a samurai.
No. Miles Garrett seems to think he's Japanese, so maybe Joe Thomas is.
You had to go there. Well, you know what? He might be Japanese. He might be Texan, but what he definitely isn't is an Ohioan or a Clevelander. That's a fact.
Except he owns minority stake in a Cleveland team.
And not a soul cares. Keep it, sell it. None of us care. You're not one of us. And I'm so excited not to have to root for that this year. All right, moving forward, let's remind you that if Trump even gave a shat about Joe Thomas, sitting there next to him, if he gave a shat about Joe Thomas's cause, why would he not be supporting Thomas Massie's bill protecting American farmers, as Joe Thomas highlights here? It's just the hypocrisy on the front stage, and we all continue to just clap and nod along. That being said, I do want to double back to a logical inconsistency that has crippled the American farms, which has been this Bill Gates fart epidemic. He's like, the cows are farting, and that it used to be like they were like, beware your car's emissions, and then everybody was like, we don't give a shit. I'm always going to be gas guzzling my car. And they're like, all right, we got to rearrange this. Everybody's eating cheeseburgers. We're going to make it cow farts. And for some reason, the sophisticated members in your society were like, yeah, that makes sense. It's the cow farts, the emissions, the sun, the thing. Bill Gates, he's right. It's the cow farts. Well, I'm a people's person. I'd like to leave it to the people. It's comedy, it's comedic, but boy, in some ways, in most ways, comedy sometimes carries the most philosophical and political punch. That being said, SIW Outdoors, I think, has one of the funniest takes as far as this cow fart claim we've had to deal with for as long as we have.
Challenge for Bill Gates. Bill,
You said that cows produce more pollution than a car. All right. Well, I've got a little challenge for you. I'm willing to stay all night in my garage with it closed up with not one, but both of my cows in there. Let's see, let me spin it around. This little heifer's gonna run. And she's the crazy one. So yeah, I'll spend the night in my garage closed up with my 2 cows. And then you can spend the night in your garage with your car running. And then the next morning we can meet up down here at the Huddle House and I'll even pay for your meal. I'll pay for your breakfast. And we can discuss our findings. I think it would be very scientific and very educational for the both of us. What do you say? You like that idea? I think it's a pretty good idea.
I do
Whichever
too.
one doesn't show up is a loser.
Last bit of Thomas Massey we're going to get in today's episode. He makes this claim that the biggest thing between conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact anymore, it used to be 6 months. That kind of became a thing since the pandemic. Now it's about 6 days. And one of the things we're seeing here is what used to be claimed as a conspiracy theory, where we have legislation that is going to combine the U.S. military with IDF military. Oddly enough, again, I tell you, is becoming conspiracy fact. Here's Thomas Massey highlighting this issue, and then we're going to get into the Pentagon's reaction to this whole deal, and it ain't happy.
That letter that you showed comes on the heels of a section 224 of the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that was just made public by the chairman and the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. They intend to mark up that bill next week, I believe, and then we could see the NDAA on the floor very soon, maybe next month, if not sooner, for a full House vote. There's a troubling provision in there, Section 224, which I intend to offer an amendment to strip, but that provision would enmesh, synchronize, integrate, whatever word you want to use. I think they use the word synchronize in the legislation, but we all know what it means, and we were called conspiracy theorists last week for saying this means we're going to merge the 2 militaries, the IDF and the U.S. military, because they said, oh, this is just, we're merely combining our technology and our supply chains and all this other stuff. It has nothing to do with chain of command, which that may be true, but it's still an encumbrance and an entanglement that I think, honestly, is treasonous. There is no reason that this is not a symmetric relationship. Even NATO is asymmetric, but this is way more asymmetric, where we're going to be the ones giving, compromising our own national security, basically obligating ourselves to the defense of Israel at any cost, regardless of what Netanyahu engages in once we, through Section 224 of the NDAA, and then this letter, which is showing you the road, the path that they intend to go down. It makes us all not conspiracy theorists now. It only takes the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth has been about 6 months here in Washington, D.C. It's now reduced to 6 days in this Israeli plan.
Oh, lovely. Don't you love hearing that? So important to keep that in mind. Last piece to piggyback off of that legislation that we're up against, the Pentagon is currently suing the government, saying that this is a total infraction on the separation of powers, the integrity of our military, and really the state of the nation as it is. A lot is hanging in the hands of agencies we never really trusted before, but they're kind of our last line of defense between us and a full-blown merger with a foreign country. But if you were to mention that, point it out, or even acknowledge it, you're a bad guy. Because these are the good guys. Trademarked. TM. It's hard not to be disheartened by this whole thing. That being said, keeping it along the Trump line, the guy's losing his wits. And people are kind of prying and poking and getting curious about that whole. We loved poking fun of the president that there was a Roomba falling upstairs. Now, I think it's about time we all admit that this ain't the Trump of old, and he's even losing his own wits, which is probably what makes it so easy for him to be manipulated, controlled, and guided by anybody, money, or a foreign country. But here is a line of questioning that came out of this past week with Marco Rubio. He's being pressed that, we're catching you in lies. We're catching you hiding some inaccuracies and curiosities around the president. And we've also caught you lying to Congress. So first, we're going to start with Representative Jacobs coming out of this past week. She's grilling Marco Rubio, and his responses is indirect, to say the least.
Mr. Secretary, it seems like you have an issue admitting facts. You can't say that the president lost the 2020 election, just like you won't admit President Trump is losing this reckless war of choice, and just like you couldn't admit that the shoes the president bought you were too big. You clearly don't know what winning means, and not because the facts are unclear to you, it's because telling the truth would cost you your job, and the American people are entitled to a Secretary of State who tells them the truth even when the president doesn't want to hear it, and my constituents, our service members, deserve better. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I don't know what shoes she's talking about. What is she talking about?
Representative Burchett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd like to answer any of that.
Yeah, I don't know about the shoes. I mean, he gave me some Florsheim shoes. They're actually pretty good. They fit fine. I don't know what she's talking about, and maybe that's what she's referring to.
Your shoes look very nice today, Mr. Secretary.
How can you see them? They're way down here. We're talking about shoes. Are you guys kidding me? I mean, is this the Foreign Affairs Committee, or is this like a circus? What is this?
I love that Fox News shares this clip of like, look at this circus. Look at this circus. He addressed none of it. Marco Rubio, Mr. Rubio, you're the one that chose to get lost on the shoes. The greater point is what got lost on you. So this is moments where we think, people, and again, I'm purple. I'm definitely not blue, but I want to be, I used to be red. You're all evil. The whole thing sucks. And here I am sitting here saying, here's Representative Ted Lieu, who's exposing Marco Rubio for his lying to Congress and kind of directly addressing the point that Representative Jacobs may have gotten lost in. So, again, Representative Ted Lieu, take it away.
Secretary Rubio, have you been at more than one meeting where President Trump has fallen asleep?
That's false. That's false. I've never seen him fall asleep. On the contrary, the guy doesn't sleep, which is a big problem because he calls me at 2 in the morning. He calls me at 5 in the morning. And, I like to sleep a little bit, maybe not 12 hours.
Levity lightens the mood and distracts.
Hours or but at least 6. So he works. The other day he was at the Oval Office until 12:30 p.m. 12:30 a.m. I don't know what you're talking about.
Secretary Rubio, I'm going to show you in a moment a video that shows you just lied to Congress.
Oh, okay.
So this is a video of a cabinet meeting literally from last month where Donald Trump is sleeping while you're talking. Please show this video.
I mean, to be fair, I want to fall asleep when he talks.
When who? Marco Rubio talks? Yeah. Yes.
A coalition of countries that line up behind the peace deal, behind the border peace, and it's still.
But also notice, okay, Doug, yes, Doug, you win the greater point. I give you that 10 times over. But I do want to acknowledge, like, when you look at something like this, who's running the show?
I think he just forgot to blink.
All right, now you sound like a Joe Biden sympathizer. When you look at this image, there's no world you can tell me he even remotely looks like he's running the show anymore. And that's one of the things we're talking about here, Doug, is like he's losing what made him so special. And we're going to get to that, but we got to show this
real quick.
Yeah.
All those Big Macs can really make you sleepy.
That is true. If he just came off a Big Mac indulgence, yeah, those things make you crash. I mean, Big Macs, Chipotle, like those are heavy things that result in naps. That is the symptom.
That line up behind the peace deal, behind the border peace, and it's still every day is a challenge. But it's been driven.
Who looks like they're running the show here?
It's the reason why we're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war. It's not the president's war.
He's gonna go, I didn't even notice him. He was just asleep next to me. I was running American business.
This war started. It never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is
To be
going
fair,
on,
do you
and the
look
president.
over at the person to your left when you're doing a press conference like that? No, you're not looking over going as you're talking. Really,
All
you're
right,
you're facing
Doug,
forward. You
this
know,
sympathizer.
Hey,
Is trying to end it.
Wait a second. Hold
hey,
on.
I'm not a big public speaker. I'd be focusing on me. I'll be honest. I wouldn't be looking at the guy next to me.
Well, wait. F you,
Oh!
Doug! I knew I'd find it. Boo, Doug! Universe, give us a... And,
Well, even I was with you going, oh, caught.
I knew I'd find it, Doug.
We're involved in this whole Ukraine-Russia conflict. That's not our war. It's not the president's war. This war started. It never would have happened if you'd been president. But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it.
You are literally talking about issues of war and peace, and Donald Trump is sleeping right next to you.
I'm sorry, but in the Shakespearean political theater we're stuck living in, that's a bar. That was a moment. He's literally, you're talking about war and peace, and he is the president, the oligarch, the royal family of America is asleep next to you. So I guess maybe a bigger takeaway from the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, they might be the royal family, but there's a hand up that puppet's ass. Last bit here, as I was trying to say, the guy's clearly losing his wits. He ain't as sharp as he used to be. Let's take a walk down memory lane. Here's Marco Rubio dying in the wool, fighting, protecting Donald Trump. And it's important to remember, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, all these people were never Trumpers. And now they are telling you what MAGA is, you dumb MAGA idiot face. Let me remind you what MAGA really was. Let me remind you what Trump used to be.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second...
So cute. Such a cute soundbite. But here's the guy.
The wall he gave up on, by the way, the wall that is no longer important the second it wasn't feasible.
Such a cute soundbite. But here's the guy.
And you got to remember, the reason the wall isn't feasible isn't because it isn't feasible. It is. But every dollar they give to the wall, this chapter is a dollar they don't put in their own pockets. You idiot.
That buys a house for $179,000.
Wait, go back.
Such a cute soundbite. But here's the guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have as
president.
president.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
I have to say, he lied this time. He lied. 100%. 100%.
You lied about the Polish workers.
Yeah.
Most
You lied
crazy
to the
debate
students.
ever.
Yes.
38 years ago.
Oh, he lied 38 years ago. All right, I guess there's a statute of limitation on lies.
All right, Doug, you made the comment. Tell me he isn't compromised anymore. Because that dog off a leash, we haven't seen that in half a decade. Am I wrong?
I mean, usually there's decorum, and he gave up on that.
So what's the excuse of him not being like that anymore?
I think he's just insane. I think he always was, but that's what some people wanted the first time around.
No, I think he had his wits about him 10 years ago compared to who he is today. I think that a decade later, his age is showing. I think somewhere along this last decade, he became compromised, whether that was his daughter's royal marriage or whether it was, I don't know, a video an island might have gotten of him. Whatever it is, no one knows. But you can't tell me we're dealing with that same guy. And it's funny how that dynamic between the two of them has been flipped on its head. What is the shared agenda they have now? Maybe it's who they serve. So last piece here. Well, no, we've got a couple last pieces. We're getting towards the end of today's episode. Dense one. I get it. But I got Mike Levinka. And this might be Trump's biggest fraud of just, we're only halfway through the administration. This might be Trump's biggest fraud coming out of this 2 years alone.
Walk you through what just happened, because if you're not paying close attention, you may have missed the most corrupt thing a sitting president has done in modern American history. Earlier this year, Donald Trump sued the IRS. He demanded $10 billion from the federal government over the leak of his tax returns back in 2019. Think about just that for a second. The president of the United States sued his own government for $10 billion in his personal capacity. Here's where it gets worse. The Justice Department was supposed to defend the government against that lawsuit, but of course the Justice Department works for Donald Trump. So Trump's personal lawyers were negotiating against Trump's own Justice Department in a case where Trump controls both sides. And the federal judge in Florida, no less, saw exactly what was happening. She ordered both sides to come into the court and explain whether they were actually opposing each other or whether they were just colluding to hand Trump a payout. That deadline was this Wednesday. So today, Monday, Trump's lawyers made their move. They dismissed the lawsuit. They told the judge that no judicial analysis is appropriate. They cut the judge out of the process altogether. And in exchange, the Justice Department announced a $1.776 billion fund. Note the number, 1776, a wink to the founding of the country, attached to what I would call a scheme that I think the founders would have been apoplectic about. The money is going to be controlled by 5 people, all handpicked by Trump's attorney general. They can pay out claims to anyone who says they were a victim of so-called weaponization by the Biden administration. And that includes the January 6th defendants that Trump pardoned. It could include entities tied to Trump himself.
He's also hired some of those people to be within his service, whether it's military, like there's a guy that's a part of his military background or military detail, like the Secret Service, but it isn't the Secret Service, it's a military detail.
Usually the dude that's carrying the football.
Yeah, exactly. So you're hiring J6ers within your within your administration now. It's just wild.
And this commission has no obligation to disclose how it makes the decisions. The Justice Department said Trump and his sons won't be paid directly. They'll just get an apology. But entities associated with the Trump family are not explicitly barred from filing claims. We have tried to stop it. And unfortunately, Trump's lawyers are going to do whatever Trump wants, no matter how corrupt, no matter how unethical. Let me say very plainly what just
covered,
happened.
baby.
Donald Trump sued himself. He is settling with himself. He cut the judge out, and he's setting up a $1.8 billion slush fund of your taxpayer dollars to pay off his political allies without any court oversight, without any congressional approval or transparency. My Republican colleagues can't be bothered to do oversight. Never in the history of the U.S. has a sitting president sought a monetary settlement from the government he leads. This is the federal treasury being converted into a slush fund for Trump. And every American who pays taxes is the one who's funding it. Congress has to act. This is completely out of control.
They have to act, but they won't, because the one single person, if the couple, get voted out by the 30 millions if they stand up to such corruption. That being said, we're going to kind of bring a conclusion to the Trump family, royal family, American power, that this dialogue we're having here. We're going to bring a conclusion to it here. However, there's one more topic I have for us that involves this, which is Donald Trump Jr.'s marriage, which was wedding the woman who was the daughter of Jeffrey Epstein's banker. You'd think I'm making this up. So before we even get into that final story, because that's going to kind of transition us into our final topics that conclude our episode. That being said, I'm going to conclude today's topic in its entirety: the Trumps, America's royal family. This family tree, I need to remind you, Donald Trump's uncle Dr. John G. Trump from MIT, You got to remember, Nikola Tesla was running from the government, trying to fight for free electricity for America, was against the government, he died. Some would say unalived, he was disappeared, he was taken out. I wouldn't say that. I just say it up here. That being said, all of Nikola Tesla's findings, his chest of work, was given to Dr. John G. Trump from MIT. So this man has always been a deeply embedded figure within this New World Order network, the Rothschild network. So, concluding today's episode. So when all is said and done, this conversation isn't really about the Trumps, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Kennedys, or any single family. It's about power, because every generation of Americans like to believe that the power is constantly changing hands, that every election is a reset button, and every new leader represents a new chapter. But history suggests something more complicated. The names change, the faces change, the parties change, yet the circles of influence often remain remarkably small. The people with access tend to acquire more access. The people with wealth tend to acquire more wealth. The people who grow around power tend to understand how to navigate it better than those who don't. That doesn't mean there is a secret room where everything is decided. It doesn't require a grand conspiracy. In many ways, it's something far more ordinary and therefore far more powerful. Networks, relationships, institutions, generational advantages, the accumulation of influence over decades of centuries. And decades and centuries. And that's why discussions like this matter, not because they prove some hidden ruler is controlling everything from behind a curtain, but because they force us to ask whether our institutions are still doing what they were designed to do, create opportunity for the ordinary people to rise. Because the health of a republic isn't measured by whether powerful families exist, every society has powerful families. The real test is whether new families can join them, whether talent can compete with legacy, whether merit can compete with connections, whether the doors of power remain open or simply become inherited. And if Americans stop asking those questions, then it won't matter whose name is on the ballot. The dynasty has already won. So let's get into the final piece that'll transition us into our concluding topics here. Donald Trump wouldn't go to his son's wedding. Doug, did you see that?
I didn't.
You didn't see this? So Donald Trump was caught in an interview. He's a busy guy. He's got to serve Howard Lutnick. What do you think? I'm going to have time to go to my own son's wedding?
Your son's wedding this weekend, by the way? He'd like me to go.
He'd love me to go.
Just a small little
Who would think my son would love me to go to his wedding?
private affair, and I'm going to try and make it. I'm in the midst. I said, you know, this is not good timing for me. I have a thing called Iran and other things. That's one I can't win on. If I do attend, I get killed. If I don't attend, I get killed. By the fake news, of course, I'm talking about. No, but he's got a very person who I've known for a long time, and hopefully they're going to have a great marriage.
Mr. President,
hopefully.
to add to the art, I just actually passed by it on my.
So it's funny, he can't go to his son's wedding, to Donald Trump Jr.'s marriage to Epstein's personal banker's daughter. Boy, is she gorgeous. We'll give him that. Can't make it to this wedding. However, Donald Trump will shut down the streets of New York City to find himself at a New York Knicks game because he's a New Yorker, baby. He's a New Yorker, and he's going to find himself at Game 3. Damn it. So here, first, we're going to kick this whole story off with Jack Mack, a studio favorite, friend of the show, Jack Mack, on the ground here in New York City, talking about how there were these watch parties selling tickets for making thousands of dollars. All the watch parties around the stadium had to be closed because the president is coming to the Knicks game.
On the ground journalisming with Jack Mack right now, showing you exactly what New York is like prior to Trump coming to Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Obviously, you can see the cops over here. Now, this is where you would enter Madison Square Garden, or one of the locations you can. This is kind of a plaza that you will see, but this is also going to be completely shut down starting at 4 p.m. The only way you will be able to stand right here is if you have a ticket. Also, speaking of the cops, I was just walking by. One of the cops said there's going to be 10,000 cops outside tonight if the Knicks win. 10,000. That's more than the amount of cops that they have for New Year's Eve, which is, of course, a huge night in New York City. Now where I'm standing is Plaza 33, where the Knicks usually have their watch party outside of MSG. That watch party will not be happening tonight in this area because of Donald Trump coming to Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Here you will see these barriers that are almost blocking where you would drive into MSG. These are usually not up. The parts of New York City that will be blocked off will start on 31st Street over there, and then it will go up all the way to 35th, which is beyond there. You're seeing 33 in the distance, and then go to 6th Avenue, which is beyond this building, all the way over to 8th, which is beyond Madison Square Garden. Now, all the videos that you see of Knicks fans celebrating outside of MSG are here, and that probably is not going to be able to happen tonight until, I guess, I don't know, hours after the game. So usually this entire block shut down. People are there, people are partying, people are on top of the poles and everything. But tonight that's not going to happen because starting at 4 o'clock, I would not be allowed right here starting at 4 o'clock unless I have a ticket. If you want to give me a ticket, give me a ticket. But yeah, so I mean, crazy times. It was going to be crazy regardless, but Trump definitely added like another aspect here. Secret Service guy over there I'm looking at.
What you got, Doug?
I just got to say, I worked downtown 2016 when we had the RNC. I never felt safer in downtown Cleveland than seeing all the Secret Service and all the different cops from across the country. I mean, I met Utah State Troopers, Nebraska State Troopers. I met some really good guys coming to where I worked because they happened to be down there. I'll tell you what, never felt safer. Cop at every corner. New York's got to be a safe place, or yesterday. I mean, it's Tuesday now, but, it had to be a very safe place, I mean, you think liberals would love that. It's a safe space.
that fair consideration. Doug, you reminded me of the one time I went to a sporting event with a president. In 2007, Barack Obama threw the first pitch out at the All-Star game in St. Louis. So for the home run derby and the events that came days leading up to the All-Star game, really wasn't that bad getting into Busch Stadium there in St. Louis. However, the All-Star game that the president is at, dude, it took 2.5 hours to get through security at the stadium.
Dude,
it was so slow.
I went to an Ohio State football game. I'd been to tons before this. My aunt had season tickets and would get them all the time from her. I want to say it was Biden when he was vice president. He happened to be going to a game, and they had cops lining the street that we had to walk across to get to the stadium. They're like holding everybody back because the caravan's driving through. Dude, it took so much longer to get to the stadium because of all the roadblocks and get in. And that was the vice president. Like,
right,
that's why I wanted to bring
right.
it up. I don't know which. It was either Biden or it was Pence because it was either 2016, 2017-ish, depending on when. But it was still the vice president, and that shit was crazy.
Dude, the stadium I was at was furious because Obama left by the 4th inning. They're like, you made us go through all that and you left?
That's like Zion Williams playing UNC. He twists his ankles in the first minute of the game. He's out, and all the president, all these important people were there. The security for that one game was insane. He got hurt in the first few minutes. Everybody left. They all came to
Seriously?
see him. Do you remember that? Zion was wearing his Nike shoes. He was sponsored by Nike, and it just his shoe ripped, and he hurt his ankle in the big UNC Duke game.
Well, Doug, I love you for this. I'm going to take the opportunity to remind you, don't buy Nike. That's the response. Vote with your views, vote with your dollars. You will never find Nike in the Rethink Tank studio. In fact, the folks that come here, Doug included, raising his hand over here, they all know. What?
I have a lot of Nike.
Sure, they know if you're wearing your Browns jersey, I'll let it slide. But they know to avoid their Nike. I make it known. I make it uncomfortable for them to wear Nike in here. So vote with your views, vote with your dollars. Don't be like Zion and break your ankles. Don't buy Nike. Buy something like Under Armour. Just saying. Anywho, now that we're here, we're at the Knicks game. Game 3. Trump had to go and burden all of New York, and the New Yorkers were pissed as the New Yorkers are spending 47, it was crazy, dude. 15,000, 10,000. One of the tickets was 47,000.
He lives in New York. The nosebleeds were at least 10,000.
Yes, dude. Crazy ticket prices. And, what's worth the price of admission? Listening to an entire insulated Madison Square Garden boo Donald Trump.
It's New York, too. Come on.
He's from New York. That's a spot.
Yeah, but come on, New York and Trump, they don't get together. And look at the bulletproof glass in front of him.
With the Rethink Tank reflection over his face.
I love that. Ari, let's go.
Some would say that's shot clock, but
were you there?
I just love the whole stadium booing him and humbling him. Why would they do that? That's some crazy stuff. It wouldn't be because he's sharing a Loge and eating pizza with 9/11 terror demon Howard Lutnick. Q Muttley. Dude, look at this.
You know why if he had brought 9/11 firefighters to his booth, they wouldn't have booed him.
And look at dude, he's laughing again. Q Muttley. Muttley is always having a damn good time on you, the taxpayer's expense.
I like the way he eats that pizza, though. That's New York style right
You're
there.
such a goofball, Doug, because everybody on Twitter was saying that. Everybody was like, but he eats pizza like a New Yorker. You're going to get pissed at him going to a Knicks game, but he eats pizza like a New Yorker. Next to shit-eating Grit and Muttley.
If you've ever had a real New York slice, you got to do it that way. If
you ever made billions of dollars off of tumbling towers, you'd laugh too. Let's get into what these types of events conclude in. Now, completely departing from the Trump dialogue, getting to our last couple videos here, because this is really the breaking news, the breaking dialogue, the current moment of the day. First things first, leave it to New York, leave it to the instincts of, let's just say, Knicks fans, where the loss here, ready? First, let's get to this meme. Knicks fans going back to their 25 square foot apartment after spending $15K to watch their team lose. I'm going to tell you right now, you wish they went and hid in their little 25 square foot apartment, because the instincts of Knicks fans ain't that. And it's more BLM riding. Look at the cops having to protect Spurs fans. Let me tell you, let me be clear. I saved you from the most vulgar videos that came out of this evening, which was people being brawled, the jerseys ripped off them, torn in half, a lot of blood, because these are the good folks. Because if it wasn't for people that look like you and me, they'd be doctors and engineers. But you're the reason they're assaulting Spurs fans after the circus show they call basketball. But hey, we're all Globetrotter fans. That being, just closing the whole thing out here.
Real quick, I think New Yorkers are just mad they're not going to sweep. That's what it was.
Yeah, I would say the script is in their favor. So them being this upset is just ridiculous. But Doug, did you see the other news that came out of today, which again, we're not even going to get it into because it's a whole nother Pandora's box, but we're just going to touch upon because you're seeing a theme, whether it's a Knicks game or justice. The next iteration here is the Carmelo Anthony trial, where body cam or literal footage shows a boy of whatever demographic they need to be. I don't give a shit. They're evil. They walk into an opposing track meet locker room tent, causing conflict, starting a fight where inserted de-escalation happens, it results in this person murdering another child. They get convicted, and here's the good folks preparing for the other American riots coming out of tonight. Here are the protests outside of the courtroom. Carmelo Anthony.
What do you want us to do?
I don't know,
do you want us
not stab people?
to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys.
No, actually, quite literally, this kid being named Carmelo Anthony is poetic. I've been actually like reveling in that for the last couple months. It's poetic. It's so poetic.
I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk
Yeah, you
away
do.
no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin.
No, Mo.
Right now.
Trayvon Martin was also walking around. Again, we're not even going to get into that. Let's be real here.
No more. You can't walk away no more.
You can't walk away no mo. No, hun, Case. You can't stab him no mo. That's what it is. You can't stab him no mo. You can't come in and kill a kid in cold blood no mo. The black privilege is over, FOMO. It's over. No mo. But that's not the end of the riots, Doug. That's not the end of the day. Apparently, today has been just an entire hellscape. Doug, Will's the one that brought this to my attention. I got to ask, did you see what happened in London? Or not London, in Ireland. It happened in Belfast. So Conor McGregor tweeted that we need to close the borders and no immigration should be allowed to third world countries, speaking to Ireland. No, we had a man that clawed the eyes out and beheaded just a regular old man, Irishman. And Ireland is protesting. England is protesting. There's this guy, Tommy something or other. They're all mobilizing. Topics for another day.
It's almost like Ellis Island worked.
I'm not touching that one, Doug. Maybe.
That generation, melting pot. Now
there's no melting pot. It's a salad.
Yep.
Now we don't melt. We are segregated on top of each other. Neither here nor there. So closing the whole topic up, today is just all but riots. Whether it's New York Knicks, whether it's beheading, whether it's just Carmelo Anthony and justice. We're just upset about accountability. That's the new American way. But the last piece here, it hits home. It kind of piggybacks off of all the hellscape that we weren't able to address that came out of today. Here is Chairman Gill. We're here in Ohio. This one, like I said, hits home. We've got a Democrat from Lakewood representing the Ohio Senate, and Honorable Antonio gets grilled about this consideration about what's good for Ohio. Is this good for Ohio?
Only immigration been good for Ohio?
They eat the dogs. They eat the cats. She can't answer it.
You know, that's really outside of my purview of
No, it
You're a
ain't.
state senator. Would you like to see
They haven't made it to Lakewood yet, so I don't care.
more
well,
immigration from
as far
Somalia?
as far as
That was the beauty back when Trump was cognitive and competitive. It was fun when he just took a bus full of the immigrants the Democrats were trying to hide, and he was just like, take it to the richest parts of Connecticut and New York. Make them confront what they're doing. And they were like, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. Get them out of my grapevines.
I'm processing your question, and
Think about it.
I have to say that I was almost brought to tears just now.
72%
because
of Somali immigrants are on
the
on
rate
welfare.
and the level of hateful rhetoric based
You're
on
defrauding your
false
state at an
information.
astounding rate.
False information. So again, just holding severed heads just don't matter anymore. That's gonna make me cry. That's gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me consider whether or not you
Maybe
even
that's
making
why
me
women
confront that
shouldn't
might
be
happen to an Ohioan makes me feel like I'm gonna cry. What were you gonna say, Doug?
You're in Congress, or you're in a state house building, an official building, being asked a question, and you're gonna cry at a question. Should you really be elected to office if you're gonna cry during questioning? Is that who we want in charge?
Yeah,
of us?
where is the cognitive fortitude to where you can really theorize the things that affect the people?
And I think
Shocking.
that most Ohioans
It's
would have a
shocking
problem
to me.
with that.
The lack of even humanity to
I
group
think it's
a group
inhumane
of
to
people
allow your own
together.
state to be defrauded at
shocked.
astounding
I
rates.
am shocked
Billions
and
of
appalled
dollars
by the
taken out of the
behavior
pockets
here
of
right
working
now.
class people,
I am
going to
shocked.
criminal fraudsters.
Because
I certainly
in
have a
every,
major problem
in every
with that.
community,
I think
there are
that's an
good
issue. And I think
people
most
and there are
Americans
bad
agree.
people.
Yeah, regular
Agree, there are
order.
But to
Good
try
people
to
understand
say
we're not supposed to
that
people.
every
With that
single
said, we are out
member
of time,
a
Miss
group.
Antonio.
All right. The evening ends in chaos. Who knows? We're going to wake up to tomorrow.
Thank God she never actually answered that question. She just
Yeah,
went on a rant about her feelings.
Cheers, Doug. You nailed it. Nailed it. We've got wicks burning all over the world, whether it's here domestically, Ireland, England. We've got things that are going to develop. Who knows what we're going to have in store for you next week? But I think we've laid a solid foundation for what the landscape looks like here in America, and I think we're seeing the system for what it truly is. Doug, as we close out today's episode, we've thrown a lot out from Trump's royal family, all of their financial dealings, from all of them. At the least, Donald Trump Jr. has ×6 his net wealth, where Eric, his older brother, has ×10 his wealth, and Ivanka and Jared just continue to take over the world. With all of that considered, and then we broke down Thomas Massey and again, can't review it all. What are your wrapping thoughts?
I gotta say, I actually didn't know that necessarily everybody was related. So
That's
to
crazy.
me, that's something I've kept in my mind here throughout this thing, that I'm smarter today because I learned that today.
and you know what's fun is when you start doubting those things, you're like, that's such an extreme fact. There's no way. And then you start pulling this apart and you're like, damn, these Rothschilds are stronger. They're smarter than we thought. Like they've really got this thing figured out.
Well, dude, I was Googling the Rothschild family, and the patriarch of the family actually sent his sons to all the European major financial centers: London, Paris, Prague,
Yes.
Berlin.
Yes.
So he sent his kids away to create their own branches to then connect each other.
You nailed it.
I mean, that's foresight, though, too. I mean, that is
it's
smart
billion.
patriarch.
It's brilliance, billionaire brilliance. That is 5D chess. One of the other things you reminded me of, Doug, that we didn't touch upon today, but really kind of peeling back our last layer of the Rothschild onion, is Vladimir Putin had extradited or had banned from Russia all Rothschild descendants. And so none of them are allowed in Russia, and they are straight adversaries.
Why
they
does
hate
anyone
each
want to
other.
go to Russia anyways? You're going to get arrested for the dumbest shit. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I don't know.
But you know what? At
basketball
least you're
player?
protected from the Rothschilds, so you got your. Hey, listen, I would say Edward Snowden, he's feeling comfortable
Let me
where he's
tell
at.
you, whether you're a basketball player or the Rothschilds, if you're a U.S. citizen, don't go to Russia because we shouldn't have to trade the merchant of death for you.
Yeah, well, is it because she smoked a weed pen or is it because she's got a penis? That's an episode for another day. That being said, if we made you laugh and we made you think, the best you get is sports today's episode is hit the like button. Make sure you share this episode because if you liked it, then someone you know will too. Again, we appreciate you joining us. And everybody we loved having Will and Doug in the comments. We can't wait to have them back in the studio, but we had the Gladiator and all these other folks joining us in the comments. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, Ricky and Will. I'm here. Ricky and Will in the
Oh,
comments.
yeah, but we had Brett Enjoyer, Gladiator, and everybody else. We appreciate you joining us in the comments. The whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. So each week we're here, and we appreciate you joining us 8 p.m. Eastern time. But it isn't just this show. We've got the podcast, the flagship podcast, and then we also have a bunch of other shows, but most importantly, our other live show is every Sunday, our reaction show. Wake up, have a cup of coffee, have some laughs, and a little break from the social and political chaos, because each week we've just got hilarious internet videos that are going to bring you some levity to kind of conclude your weekend and wake up with a nice fun feeling. So have a good morning with Doug and I, and join us on Sundays. But if you're looking for one central place to find all of this, like if we don't have a big dense episode like today and we go to the wheel where we can bring in folks that have given us topics to conclude our episode with, you can do all of that from the Neuro Gym and correspond with us directly at our website. Everything found at www.rethinktankpodcast.com for free. Otherwise, guys, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.